Because the open oceans belong to everybody, nobody is actually charged with protecting them. Enter Sarika Cullis Suzuki, an expert on the marine life of the Pacific Northwest and on high seas fisheries, who has also done extensive research on marine wildlife sanctuaries and on the FEEBLE organizations which are supposed to manage the fisheries in the open ocean. Sarika is also a gifted interpreter of science for general audiences, writing for online newspapers and producing television documentaries about the oceans, sometimes in company with her father, the legendary David Suzuki. Where does your love for the sea come from? Because this is really part of the expression of that, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have grown up by the ocean my entire life. So I was born in Vancouver in the 1980s, and we live by the ocean in Kitsilano. And my folks always thought it was really important to take us to provincial parks growing up. And so we would go to various places and go fishing and swimming and camping, and we'd pick berries and all that. And so just by spending that enormous amount of time outside and appreciating things, and you know, I learned to snorkel before I could swim because I was always sinking, so my mom put a mask on me. And this love of wilderness and the oceans was really a direct cause, a direct result of all that time that I spent outside.
What are the most important things that people need to understand about the oceans? How's that for a huge one? But
yeah,
but it comes sort of naturally out of this, right?
I mean, we need to know that we come from the oceans. Our very evolution, you know, is found in the seas. We depend on the oceans. Every second breath we take comes from the oxygen produced by the sea. Of course, we eat a lot of the animals that come out of there, and our well-being is so dependent on the ocean. You know, you think about if you're sick, you know, sometimes your doctor will say, just relax, you know, go to the seashore for a while and just get that peace back. And I think for us who live along the coast, that is something that we know. But for other people who don't necessarily live right next to the ocean, it's something that might be a little bit further from their minds. So this is something we really have to explain in a way that everybody can understand.
I think that you just passed by very quickly something that very few people know, which is that half of our oxygen comes from the sea. Mm-hmm. That's it. People who are nowhere near the sea are breathing from it.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to connect people, because often we think of, you know, I hear people say that the Amazon rainforests are like the lungs of our world, but you could say the very same thing about our oceans. And so if we think about how we treat our oceans, then that they're directly related to our own well-being. And so I like to say that oceans are downstream of everything. You know, if we throw away a plastic bag or a cup or something, inevitably that will end up in the ocean. And sometimes that will end up in the belly of an albatross or inside a sea turtle. And having said all this about the importance of the oceans, you're not very hopeful about them, right? You've said the future of the oceans looks bleak. Do I seem so jaded?
No, but worried, and I think properly so.
I mean, absolutely. If you read all these scientific reports, then there's no reason to be hopeful. If all these projections that are coming out right now are accurate, then the oceans are heading towards disaster, and that's something that we've been learning about for years now. I don't think that it is completely hopeless in the sense that we can't affect some types of positive change right now, and that's why we're pushing so hard. But in the face of climate change, which is now acidifying our oceans and heating them up, it is very hard to think that we are going to turn things around in time, because these changes are now actually happening. So this is why I think it is so important for scientists to speak out, because there really isn't any time to waste.
It's one of the things that impresses me so much about Paul Watson, is that he is actually enforcing what we say we want, but aren't enforcing it. I don't know if that's a model we're going to use elsewhere, but it's pretty hard. It's a pretty unassailable position for him to take, which is we've all passed this. We've all said this is what we want. You know, and nobody's doing anything. You know.
I have a lot of time for Paul Watson. I think he is a very brave and different person, and a person that we need, absolutely. He is one of the only people who is actually walking his talk. I actually invited him to give a talk at our Fisheries Center lecture series, and there were scientists in my building who would not come downstairs and watch his talk because they're so angry at what he does. And that's too bad, you know, because I think we can all learn from each other. But one of the things he said in his speech that I thought was so important was, we need a diversity of approaches. It's not going to be from one way, one angle, that we're going to fix the world, we're going to save our oceans. It has to be from every angle. And so Paul wasn't saying all of us need to go out into the southern seas and, you know, say to the Japanese whalers that you need to go home. That wasn't it. That's what he's doing. But he's saying to the scientists, you know, continue to do your work. And he's saying to the artists, continue to promote your stuff through art and all this stuff. And this is one of the things that when we speak to young people primarily about, we say, go with your heart, you know, go with your passion, because that is really going to give you that strength and that endurance to follow through with it. And then from there, bring your strengths and your talents to the cause. And I think that is absolutely integral, because it's not just going to be from one person or one way of finding a solution. It has to be from all these different angles.
Sarika Cullis Suzuki, scientist, speaker, broadcaster, and advocate for the oceans. If you enjoyed this interview, you'll probably want to see our interviews with Alexandra Morton, defender of the wild salmon, and Alana Mitchell, author of Seasick, The Global Ocean in Crisis. Oh, and you should check out our interview with Daniel Pauly, who was Sarika Cullis Suzuki's thesis supervisor when she did her MSc at the University of British Columbia. For The Green Interview, I'm Silver Donald Cameron. See you next time.